Hey everyone, it's Sunday, time for my next Infamous 3 update, and I've realized in some of my other videos I've stalled when I was talking, I've paused in my sentences, and I'm going to try to stay as fluent and clear as I can during this video. There's probably not going to be that much gameplay, because the gameplay seems to be slowing me down and distracting me from the point, so I'm just going to stick to the point. I'm going to try to be fluent throughout the entire video. I want you to leave something special in the comments today. I want you to tell me how your weekend was and what you did over the weekend. I know it sounds, some of you modern kids might say it sounds creepy that I'm asking you what you did in the weekend, but I'm in a good mood today. I went to a dance over the weekend and I had a lot of fun. Oh shit, that was unexpected. Okay, back to the video. I saw a lot of controversy on a forum on suckerpunch.com, like the official website, like it makes a difference. But there was a forum on there, people were talking about the next Infamous game, they were talking about what they want, and everyone was agreeing that Numere sucked. They didn't like it, they hated the city, bad idea, and I must say, they got right on. I don't like Numere either. I think it's terrible. The buildings are too small. I know I sound like I'm going overboard, and I'm probably going to watch this video later and be like, wow, was I really that, intense? But people were saying they need more of a metropolis city, something like Empire City. They want a actual city, not, like I said in my previous video, an oversized urban town where the buildings barely reach over 7 stories tall. So I think we can all agree that the city for the next Infamous is a must-have, because Cole McGrath grew up in the city, basically in New York. I mean, that's what Empire City is based off of, and that's where it is on the map. Not that it actually shows where it is, but, I mean, you can guess pretty well that that's what they were trying to... That's what Sucker Punch was trying to accomplish. So, I think a city is a must-have for the next Infamous game. We need more enemies, but not in the same way that they put them into Infamous 2. Infamous 2, the enemies were all... how do we say? They were spread out evenly, and there was too many of them. Not that I don't like a supple amount of enemies to fight on rooftops, because, well, after you finish the story and you're running around and you finished all the side missions, obviously you still want enemies to fight. You don't want to just run around and do nothing, Especially if you have good karma, because then you can't hurt any civilians. You have absolutely nothing to do then, except for the UGC. But there's very few people that can make a good UGC mission. Just like I said in my last video, brief subject here. We should, if they're not going to make a game with Empire City in it, we should at least have a DLC where we go back to the updated Empire City, and we have the Reapers, the Dustmen, the First Sons, everybody, and we can create UGC with all those characters. If you want a more elaborate explanation of this, go to my last video. I talked about it. But another thing, people said they wanted, if we are going to leave Cole McGrath in the dark, and Infamous 2 is literally the end of the series for Cole, because there's two split endings in Infamous 2 that caused the game, as most people say, to be, you can't make a sequel for it. I'm not so sure if you can't make a sequel, but if they're going to make something, I've seen a lot of people say they want a Kessler prequel, where you go back before the events of Infamous 1 and play as Kessler, as he grows up as a child, he takes over the First Sons, and what that reminded me of, I don't know how many of you have played Fallout 3, but at the very beginning you just play as sort of a baby, and you watch the doctors talk over about how, you know, there's the whole radiation and all that, and you're in the underground caverns. I haven't played much of it. I just played the beginning of it, and then I sort of drifted off that. But honestly, I think that would be a good idea if you started out an infamous prequel with Kessler, and you played it sort of like Fallout 3. Obviously, it'd be, you know, it'd still be infamous. The game graphics and the rendering and all that stuff wouldn't look any different. You wouldn't be in first person. It wouldn't be made by a different company. But you'd start out sort of as a child, as a teenager, and you'd play through how Kessler got his powers. You would obviously go through Kessler's life and when he ran away from the Beast, and you'd play through how he took over the First Sons, and he found coal and the Ray Sphere blast and everything. Maybe they could take it a bit further, and we could actually play through a little bit of Infamous 1 on Kessler's side and see how things were unraveling with him. Because as we know, when we play Infamous, the first one, the storyline revolves around Cole. You don't really know what's happening with Kessler. It's very, very secretive until the end. And you find out that they're the same person, and Kessler was using the Ray Sphere to, you know, make Cole the hero that Kessler failed to be. All that cool conspiracy theory stuff. And I think if we played through on Kessler's side of the Infamous 1 story and the post-Infamous 1 story, which would be, well, actually I should say the pre-Infamous 1 story because it comes before. If we could play before Infamous 1 and then play on Kessler's side through Infamous 1, and possibly even be able to fight Cole in the end. The mission at the end of Infamous 1 where you fight Kessler, you could switch up the sides and play as Kessler through the Infamous 1 story. I think that would be fairly cool. The storyline would stay the same, but it would change because you're a different character. I think that would be great. And speaking of storyline, I'm going to move on to my next subject. Infamous 2 storyline was good. I liked how they introduced the characters and everything, but it was very bland and boring at the same time. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me say this. The storyline of Infamous 1 is very, very secretive, very dark, blackout. You know, any word you want to think of that says conspiracy. You don't know what's going on. You're lost. You're trying to find out who gave you these powers. And I like that. I like the sort of secretive, dark, behind-the-curtain storyline that nobody's telling you what's going on. You know, so someone is controlling you from the outside. It's kind of like a supernatural thing. I like that in a game. I think that makes a great video game. Infamous 2, however, was straight down the line. It was straight point and shoot. You knew the Beast was coming. You fought the Beast. You had Nixon Quo. It was either, oh, good or bad. Your karmic choices weren't as confusing as in the first Infamous, because especially a good example that I loved about in the first Infamous was when you are playing the mission. I think it's the first or second mission in the historic district, and Kessler's talking to you on the phone, and he has Trish tied up on the rooftop, and he has the doctors. And if you're good karma and you say the doctors, Trish falls off the rooftop. But if you're bad karma and you say Trish, it's actually someone else, and Trish is with the doctors. I like how with the different karma they were able to incorporate different means into the story. And what I mean by that is, like what I just said, if you played through the evil karma and you saved Trish and realized that the real Trish was with the doctors and you should have saved the doctors, then you wouldn't have known that on the good karmic side, Trish is actually on the other roof, and when you save the doctors, you strictly save, you know, 6 doctors. I like how they completely changed how things were on the different karmic storylines, but kept the same storyline. I like how they killed off Trish either way. those of you that have played Infamous 1, you know what I'm talking about if you've played through both sides of the story. I like that. That was a good twist. I also like the fact, you know, I like the, and I'm going to use a metaphor here. I like in a game when you're playing through and shocking things happen, and you start out, I'm going to use facial expressions as an example. You start out with kind of like a normal game face, you know, you're happy, and then you play through and you get kind of a weird look on your face, like, okay, what's going on here? Then your mouth drops a little bit, like halfway through the story, and then your mouth just keeps, it keeps dropping open in shock, and then at the end of the game, like in Infamous, when you found out you and Kester were the same person, your mouth is just completely dropped down to the floor, and you're in utter shock. You're at a loss of words. I like that surprise element in a video game. That's another thing that I think they need to do with Infamous 3. They need to make the storyline not so bland and cut and shoot. You know, it's either you go with Quo and you're good, or you go with Nix and you're bad. I hated the Infamous 2 storyline. It was completely repetitive, and you did things over too many times. Some of the main stories were nothing but cutscenes, and I don't like that. I think they need to do more of the Infamous 1 storyline, and I like that a lot. Anyway, my camera's run out of space. Piece of shit. I'll come back with another update, possibly today. I might put up 2 updates today if I want to do a part 2 of this. I'll talk to you guys later. Leave your ideas in the comments below.